Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am excited to share a next step in learning more about implementing Carnegie Motivators now that you have access to this powerful tool within your CX leads. If you didn't watch the first webinar about what Carnegie Motivators are, I do suggest that you go back and listen to that first. I will give a bit of an overview here at the beginning, but I'm excited to share with you now, how do you take this powerful tool that you have at your fingertips to speak into your communications and your marketing at a much more deeper level in speaking to students from the motivation side and the personality side versus just the facts and figures. So I'm going to talk through today the practical application of taking these profiles that you have now at your fingertips and bringing them to life within your institution's writing, your design, your imagery, and things like that to, again, leverage your communications into a higher sophistication level. Here's what I plan to cover in the session. I'm going to do just a quick overview and recap of what Carnegie Motivators are, and then spend the bulk of the time in the kind of how to apply motivators in your written content, your imagery, your design, and look through some specific examples for each. Before we jump in, as a reminder, how we think through connecting with prospective students here at Carnegie is a profound centering around building human connection through personality-driven content. We are moving institutions to think and speak much more in humanistic terms versus facts and figures, because we know that's what drives authenticity and connection with prospective students and their families. So we have 9 different archetypes we use within the centering of that, and we apply that in many different ways here at Carnegie, from the institution side, from the prospective student side. We can do things within alumni, but the center stone within all of that is understanding the who of an institution through the lens of these 9 different personality types. We've done the national research to apply this in the turnkey way for motivators, which is then how we arrived at these 3 different profiles of students that are most common in how to speak to people in a way that is much more psychographic driven versus just maybe what their major is, what's their high school, what their GPA is, things like that. We speak to people then in a way that it moves towards the drivers of human behavior, which ultimately is, what propels people and compels people to take next steps. So I will go through each of these profiles here with you in a deeper way than what I did in the previous session, so you can start to think about how to implement this in your communication flow, in any of your marketing initiatives. But the best way to think about this is through your email segmentation and your outreach. All right, so here I want to break down each of these profiles so you get a deeper understanding of them and how you can use this in your content design and imagery. So here I'm going to start with strength motivator. And what to know about these folks that tend to fall into this bucket is they are often seen as assertive or even sometimes rebellious, but they're driven by growth, disrupting norms, and overcoming challenges. They are oftentimes seen through demonstrating grit and tenacity, and have a lot of appealing aspirations of admiration and confidence. They can academically lean towards the business or the healthcare or law fields. Doesn't always mean that each of these majors is the only thing that they're interested in. It's just, again, generalities to know within that. But you also might know that they spend in their free time maybe in exploring team sports or any other competitive activities like that. So now that you know a little bit more about kind of what drives them and who they are personally, I want to think through, what is your tone and style that you can use within all of your communications and marketing to these students. What I want you to think through is being very bold and very confident. They are really appealed by self-assuredness and being proud of what your institution provides. Be very resolute, very honest, very focused and intentional in your messaging. And I think through this is like simple, powerful, and confident statements. They really want something that is just 10 toes down. We know who we are. Here's how you are going to then benefit from being part of this community. And so being unflinching in how you are, you know that this institution is going to be right for them. Try not to be too overly sanitized, and your sentence length can vary, but what I often think through is on the right-hand side there, when you talk through about some strategic pointers, really radiate that confidence, but don't add in all the extra fluff or hidden messages, right? Again, that resolute, that honest, that intentional. When you think about valuing their time and not adding all the extras and just being very resolute in your messaging. Highlight things about bold leadership and impactful decision-making the institution is taking part of. And remember that these students are really looking for a platform for their ideas and their achievements to propel them to the success that they're looking for towards the future. Make sure to emphasize that the effort and the process will lead to their success and that your institution is dedicated to them achieving their end goal. So also I want to show some ideas around design that you can be thinking through within this. So here we've got a very strong, very focused, very determined expression within this individual in the imagery choice for this ad. Also very bold copy, very things that lean into the value of achievement and tenacity, influence, boldness, fortitude, things like that. So tying imagery and bold text and typography can really showcase how you are looking to enable them in their personal ambition and build their future at your institution. Now, I'll talk about this in some of the next steps. It doesn't mean that all of your imagery and all of your design and typography has to change for everything you do, but when you're able to segment and find that those sophistication moments, leverage different imagery, photos, design choices that are right for your institution still, that fall into all of your brand standards, but what are the things you can lift up that become much more powerful for each of these profiles? All right, so that's the strength profile. Now let's see how that is going to change as we think through those students that are going to fall into the vitality motivator. These folks enjoy cheerfulness, supportiveness, sophistication, enthusiastic, and are frequently selfless. They're fueled by life experiences, the joy of entertaining, showing compassion to others. And so thinking through toward, what are the things that are going to inspire that warmth and togetherness within the content and the imagery and design you lift up for these students. They are going to tend to gravitate towards majors in things like social sciences, education, or social work, and they spend their free time enjoying social activities like hosting parties, watching movies, attending events, using social media, things like that to showcase who they are and share that with others. So now this tone and style is going to be different than our last. What you want to think through in messaging to these students that fall into this bucket, you want to think through being very thoughtful, very passionate, very genuine. Think through a tone that's uplifting and inviting that could be inspirational and light and casual. Really think about being engaging and personable at the end of the day, and that the prospective student is at the hero of their story and they can see themselves a part of that community by the engaging content you lift up within that. Strategic pointers, what I want to think through is how do you focus on, the desire for them to be a part of a community that's going to empower them and get them to be, overly involved and excited to be part of that community. A lot of institutions are very welcoming and supportive in their messaging, but you've got to think about how do you take that to the next level? Not just being nice, not just being welcoming. Depth of care and depth of passion is really important for these students. Showcase those real person-to-person encounters and service and the experience that they'll have. Think through how to talk about programs that are going to nurture, inspire, and guide and support your students. And here I want you to think about prioritizing quality over quantity. These students, would maybe like the fluff, right? They want that emotional connection in storytelling. So thinking through the high expectations these students may have for the experience, and how do you lift up the really meaningful stories that will compel them to take action in what you're asking them to do. So through design, here you can see things that, these two students, they're likely friends, they're sharing a moment, they look happy and connected. So how can you bring through that warmth and inviting feel in your design choices, in the photos you lift up, in then the copy you overlay onto images and messages when you can segment your communications to these students? Finally, I want to talk through that creativity motivator. These students are very imaginative, inquisitive, and driven by innovation. They want to have an open space for self-expression, for exploring the unknown, and how to invent for the future. So these students can be interested in majors in the humanities, the formal sciences, engineering, or transportation. And in their free time, they're going to be tinkering or creating art or working with animals or writing about their thoughts and discoveries. This tone and style gets to be the most flexible, right? These students just want their interest piqued. So you can have very interesting constructs within your sentence structures, but be very unpretentious, be unrestrained. Honest and open is also important to them. But the most exciting part I think about is how can you be abstract, right? How can you find things that intrigue and do things a little bit outside of the norm to pique these students' interest, and they can say, there's a little difference here and I can see myself here. Think through in terms of, being expressive, and try not to be bland or cliche, right? The one size fits all messaging doesn't work for any student. And that's why these profiles are so powerful, but these students much more so don't want to kind of just hidden meaning or the just overtly just factual things. Again, think about piquing their interest in intrigue and excitement. You can also think about how to illustrate that your institution values imagination, ideation, curiosity, and innovation. So being that really personable, showcasing diversity in your offerings is important to these students as well. Our last design example here really shows kind of this upward, movement, this sense of wonder or inspiration, and having really fun elements, having imagery choices that maybe are outside of the box, and design choices are something, again, that you get a little bit more creativity here, and that's what's going to compel them and intrigue them to take the next step in what you're asking them to do. Okay, so now you have that deeper understanding of how can you think through the tweaks and differences you can make to messaging, imagery, and design choices. Want to talk through then just some ideas around next steps. So I want you to start to think through a handful of moments within your funnel that you think that if you could leverage these personality-based ideas in your content, in an email sequence, in a postcard that you're sending, I want you to think through, now that you've got access to this, how do you tweak some moments that can be really powerful then for that message to be delivered and be compelling to that student. I am never going to tell you to overhaul every communication piece you have with these three profiles. You don't have the resources, the time, any of those things. Start small. Think about the moments that are most impactful, and can you do things like change the subject line that would be more intriguing to these three profiles. Change the postscript, right? Change the call to action. When you think about the call to action, make sure that it's compelling to them, that you are actually asking them to do something and you're giving them the so what, and how can you then think through adjusting that? Then I want you to think through the images, right? If it's again emails or ads, think through 3 different images that you could use that would be more compelling to that profile. Put yourself in the shoes of each of these students. And if you're going to receive that email, that postcard, that, whatever piece of thing that you are sending out there, will that be compelling to that student or that family? And then the last thing I want you to do is evaluate and adjust. So make sure that you're not just kind of setting it or forgetting it. Make sure that you understand. Are you getting better response rates? Are you seeing that? Okay, cool. That's working. Now you can start to implement that in different ways. If it's not, can continue to tweak the messaging or the imagery and the design to start to see that better engagement in whichever moments you're starting to lift this powerful tool into. Then once you start getting rolling, it gets fun and you can start to implement this in many different ways. Ultimately, I really want you to think through how you can use this to move from generic one-size-all-fit messaging to compel your students to take the next step to ultimately enroll, and move them along the journey in a better and more connected way to the institution, because you are able to take that information and really bring that more powerfully to the student that you want to reach. So that's what it's all about, right? Tapping into the feeling, bringing that core motivation of these 3 profiles, and not just conveying messaging, but evoking a really emotional response, making these students really feel understood, seen, and excited about the possibility of joining your institution. And that's that connection that's going to drive action. I thank you for your time today. This is the end of this session. We'll continue to add more to the arsenal that you have, so that you're leveraging this powerful, effective engagement tool, a part of your CX platform. But do please reach out to us if you've got questions, if you've got ideas, and you want more information in how to leverage this. We're here to help you in every step of the way. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for joining, and have a good rest of your day.